we're getting some great leads from the ads that we've been doing over the last few weeks.
Awesome. So yeah, everyone keep it up. We have free lead summer for
That's right.
another month and a half. So let's keep it up. And remember to take a screenshot and send it to Heather, and we'll reimburse you $20 a week every week all summer long. And then CE class tomorrow, our 12 o'clock CE class is going to be navigating difficult closings, which probably have a lot of those around now. So it's probably good to join that. These are all on Zoom. This one's sponsored by Tycor Title, so there will be a separate email out with registration for that. And then Chantel is hosting a career day for new agents or people who are considering getting into real estate this Saturday, the 25th. So if you have anyone that you would recommend, if you know people who are thinking about getting into real estate and just have some questions, they are welcome to come. It's going to be at the office and on Zoom, 11 to 1 on Saturday. So reach out to Chantel for more information, or RSVP to her, or pass any of your people you might know over to her, because I know a lot of people right now are considering real estate that maybe haven't in the past or have always thought about it. Cool. Let's go to Josh from Academy. Thank you for joining us. Josh, will you give us a quick lending update of what's going on with money, jumbo loans, rates?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Quick market update. So in terms of rates, the Fed continues to buy mortgage-backed securities. This is having a stabilizing presence on the market, which is good for rates. Mortgage bonds continue to trade between some key technical levels, which is good for stabilization. However, it does leave a lot of room for price fluctuations, both in the positive and in the negative. So with your buyers that you have out there that are under contract or get under contract and they've got a 30 to 45 day window for closing, we recommend locking those folks in as soon as possible. If you lose rate and you're in the middle of your closing window, and you don't get that back beforehand, then that could be a lot of loss. So we're leaning towards locking in that respect. I sent over a slide. I'm not sure. Do you have that on buying power?
Can you pop that up?
Yeah, just one moment.
Okay, great. So obviously, I don't have to tell you guys, inventory's, low, lots of multiple offers going on out there. But if you have clients that are waiting in the wings for home prices to go down, obviously that's not happening right now, and it's important for them to understand that their buying power is greatly, reduced once rates go back and eventually back up, and eventually they will. So, the rate market that we're in right now is, is not going to be, sustainable, long term. So if they are waiting in the wings, again, now's the time to do it. I'm happy to put this slide together. I don't know, can you can you see it, the whole thing at once? So anyway, I can adjust these amounts, change the loan amount to anything you might want. I can put your information up at the top. I can tailor these if any of you want something like this to share on your social media with your clients, so on and so forth. Next slide, if you want to go to that, is the real estate report card. I did this one just for Washington County. It's got a lot of great information, some good infographics that you can share with your clients. Again, same thing. Be happy to put any of these together for you with your branding and information on it that you might like, that you can share out there with your folks. So just reach out if any of you want some of this. This one's for Washington County, but I can do any of the counties, is fine. So
Josh, this one's great for agents to bring with them to talk to the data and what's going on. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, Josh, explain the affordability index. Why is that going up?
what's that?
On this chart, where in the lower right corner you have the affordability index chart. Why is that going up? Why is it becoming more affordable to buy houses right now?
Oh, well, I mean, the direct, the direct relationship to that, of course, is our low rate market that we're in. You can afford more house, and your payments are going to be lower with these low rates. As you saw in the buying power, the difference between, payment at those same purchase prices once rates go back even up into, below 4 is huge. And so that's why, and that's why you're seeing the advantage to affordability right now, is huge there. So yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Oh, and Josh, you said one other thing that I want to make sure we can all speak intelligently to. You said that rates this low are not sustainable. Tell us more about that and what conversations are you having?
Well, so, I mean, right now with the Fed buying so much, in mortgage-backed securities the way that they are, this was a strategy they took back a long time ago in 2008, 9, 10, when things, when things had sort of, gone downhill with the housing crisis. And then they backed off of it. But as we have entered into this new, COVID area, recessionary time, they have picked us back up. Originally, they started off buying way too much. Then they eased off and have sort of stabilized that. But long term, they're not going to, this isn't a solution that they're going to be able to just do, forever. If I had a crystal ball, I would say nothing is probably going to change too much through November. But what we don't know is what's going to happen post-election cycle, regardless of, where we land with that. Policies and things are going to change. And so we just, so we don't know how sustainable that's going to be. So as a result, if there's pullback in that, or there's other influential factors that come in, then then we could easily see rates go back up. So, great question.
Hey, Josh, can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people follow this, but about 3 weeks ago, Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, said that they're going to do everything that they can to keep this economy moving, including buying more mortgages, buying ETFs, and they didn't rule out the idea of buying stocks in the stock market. So right now they're already buying bonds of large companies like Walmart and others to make sure that those companies have liquidity and keep employing people. And so, I mean, the prospect for having rates go up in the, between now and the end of the year, as you said, is looking pretty low. In fact, it may be likely as we go into the winter, they go down more. So I think that your comments are really timely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, and then on, I've got a lot of questions recently on closing timelines, so I wanted to just address that. Pipelines are busy for both purchases and refinances. However, we continue to prioritize purchases and their close of escrow dates. We're still closing in 30 days, can accommodate rushes as necessary. Appraisers are busy. Some of them are responsive to rush fees and some aren't. So it sort of just depends. What I'd say is, as their agent, please, help prep your buyers for participating in their loan transaction. The more responsive the buyers are in providing, of course, their lender what they need, the quicker and smoother things are going to go on timelines. A little bit on product updates. Jumbos. We have 4 in-house jumbo options that we're working with right now. We actually have a brand new one that recently came out. We're still kicking the tires on it and learning more information on it, but we have a new one that allows you to go as low as 5% down, which is awesome. There's a loan limit on it of $650,000, but it's still a great option to sort of bridge that gap between the conforming loan limit and some of those, slightly higher prices before you get into, the 700s, 800s. We've got a acreage plus one that was suspended for a little while, but that came back. So 5 to 160 acres. You can go as low as 5% down on that with 6 months reserves. So that's a cool program. A lot of details in that, but if you've got anybody who might be interested in something like that, as people decide they want to move off the grid and start their own hobby farm and
Welcome back,
quarantine.
everybody. This is Rob.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And will you share your contact info in the chat, because we do have some newer agents on the call. And again,
Yeah.
reach out to Josh if you have mortgage questions, lending questions, and if you want some of those marketing materials that he can provide.
Absolutely, will do.
Reached out, which is great. Thank you, Josh.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Connie Vera, who's leading our equity, equality. She's going to talk a little bit about that task force at our market center and representing us regionally and to Keller Williams International. So she's just going to give us a quick update of what they are doing and, some of their things. Thanks, Connie. Oh, wait, we can't hear you. Maybe unmute your phone. Are you called in? I can see are you dialed in?
No, she's on her computer.
Can you do it on her?
It says you're connecting, so just give it a sec.
Can you do it on her phone, Austin?
She's learning how to use. So,
What about on her phone? She can't hear it twice. Once you hear it once.
Connie, unmute your phone. Oh, hold on. Austin, can you unmute your phone?
He's trying.
Oh,
He doesn't.
it says Connie's iPhone.
Connie's iPhone or Connie Vera.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Connie's iPhone? No, he didn't do it.
Okay, we'll come back to Connie. Austin will help you. Yeah, Austin, can you unmute her iPhone? She says.
She has, Connie, you have to do it on your phone. He doesn't have.
She said
control
she's
of that.
not muted on her phone.
Oh.
it's how you enter into Zoom call. It's a button you push when you enter into the Zoom call. It says call in using audio.
Okay, yeah. Connie, call back in. We'll do that update at the end, because I do want you to share the updates of what you guys have going on. So let's go to our main event today, Mr. John Velez. He is one of our agents here. He's been here almost 15 years. Is that right, John?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, we can hear Connie. Wait, pause that, John. Let's hear Connie's update really quick. And then you can take the rest of the time. Yes, Connie, we can hear you.
All right, so I could barely hear you, but I'm just gonna talk. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, great. So real quick, there's been a lot of good momentum happening on the national and regional task forces. The national is made up of all of us ambassadors who were chosen in our regions. And the regional task force is the ambassadors like me and 2 others spearheading approximately 35 volunteer associates within our region. And that's Idaho, Alaska, Washington, and Idaho, Alaska, Washington, and Oregon. So the first update that I wanted to share with you is that we've changed the name. We initially called it the Equality Task Force, and we're moving to Equity Task Force. And the main reason is that we can't achieve equality until we have equity. Equality meaning everyone has equal access to the same opportunities, hence promoting fairness. But equity is giving what people need in order to be successful. So when we have racial disparity, we haven't achieved equity yet. So that's the main pillar that we're focusing on is racial disparity. And so helping our Black associates, our Black clientele, and our Black communities. The National Task Force has come up with 5 initiatives that will be rolling out into all of KW. And Gary Keller is really on top of this and really moving from being non-racist to anti-racist. And so the 5 initiatives are community give back initiatives, how we're going into our communities to support support Black communities and organizations. The second one is focusing more on minorities in leadership, or the more correct term nowadays is people of color or BIPOC. Diversity training and education is another initiative that we'll be focusing on. Wealth builders, and the last one is inclusive marketing and advertising. Our last call with National, we briefly mentioned rolling out a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee within our MCs. And I know that we sort of jumped on that very quickly, and we created our KWPP Social Equity Committee. We're actually, the 3 of us ambassadors have decided to slow it down just a little bit, and we're going to get on a call with an external expert. Her name is Dr. Capri Hollins. We'll be joining her tomorrow, actually. It's just the 3 of us ambassadors from our region, plus our OP and TL. So Corinne and Dwight are lucky to be on that call tomorrow. So Dr. Hollins, who is an expert on implicit bias training, is going to speak to how we can achieve those 5 initiatives that at National is going to roll out, as well as sort of speaking to how we can create a sustainable and efficient committee within our market centers. We don't fully know exactly how to create this, so we figured that it would be best to have an expert guide us through this process so that we're not undoing things in the next few months. Let's see here. Oh, we've also been in contact. The 3 of us ambassadors have been in contact with the Oregon Association of Realtors, and they've committed to rolling out a webinar session with Dr. Hollins to teach all of us realtors in Oregon about implicit bias. And that is actually graciously being sponsored by AREAA Portland, which is the Asian Real Estate Association of America. And our goal is that the other states in our region will join in on supporting their realtors in their states as well. Another update is IALC, the International Agent Leadership Council, is proposing to add E for equity into our belief system of WI for C2TS. And this is a first ever change in the history of KW, and the E would go before the S and represents equity and equality for all. And another thing is we are recommending, the 3 of us ambassadors, seeing that the National Task Force was made up of 95% Black associates and colleagues. It's very different from our region. Our region, it's the opposite. It's probably 95% white associates. And so, which is fine. We are creating allies. So one thing that we realize that's different is that we need to start with education and training within our region. So we've recommended to all of our leadership to pick up a copy of White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And I know that our MCs have already received copies. The leadership has already received copies. Bruce Hardy, who's our regional director, sent all of that out, and including a workbook that goes along with the book. So if you would like to pick up a copy yourself and start reading and creating a book club, even get a few people if you're interested. I know Dwight has also offered to purchase a workbook for your little pods, and I would highly encourage that, because it really talks about unpacking our implicit bias and understanding what white fragility is, and it's a really great foundation to jumpstart our progress towards social equity. So that's it for now. Stay tuned for more as we continue to develop more great things.
Thank you, Connie. And a couple updates on our end. The IALC voted unanimously to add the E to the Y2C4Ts.
Right, 14.
Right, yeah. It's right before, it'll be ES on the end now. So they voted unanimously. And then on our regional leadership call we were just on, we became aware that we are the only market center in the Northwest with a Black owner or team leader or investor at all. So just some interesting information that, you know, we're the only ones. And then the other thing, Connie, I wanted to add on, when you say we put a pause on our local market center, that doesn't mean it's not important and it doesn't exist. It just means we're kind of waiting to see what other things are rolled out before we start rolling out our own. Because, you know, Dwight and I were kind of on this initially of like finding in-house education and getting things going in our market center. So if you are interested in being part of our MCs group, please reach out to Connie, and all of your voices are very important. And then Connie, do you want to also speak about the idea box that we had talked about?
Yeah. So, and then going back to the committee, it's still going to happen. It will most likely look like a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So we're just waiting to see how the national task force is really sort of guiding us in conjunction with Dr. Hollins's expertise. So yes, it's just on pause for a minute, and we'll jump back into it. In terms of the idea box, I spoke to Dwight and Kareem the other day. Actually, it was last week. I don't know what day it is. We are creating some kind of an anonymous box so that if you have any concerns or feedback or experiences that you would like to shed light on without disclosing your name, that will be available for you. It might be back in the kitchen area or somewhere more exclusive. I don't know where. It could be in one of those call pods. But we will provide that, because I know, and I mentioned this in the email when we first started rolling this out, when you're talking about racism and your experiences, there's a lot of fear that's built into that, and fear of, you know, being a whistleblower or having backlash. So we're just trying to create a safe space and honoring that commitment to you. So that will be coming, and drop your ideas and feedback and things like that anonymously or not.
And also, if you have questions, I know sometimes people might be afraid to ask a question about race or inclusion, because the education is the foundation of this. So you can ask your questions. So we'll have that set up probably in like the main area, but kind of underneath the onward sign in that area that will be set up. So thank you, Connie, for all you're doing for this and everything else.
Thank you.
Thank you for you. All right, Mr. John Velez, our main event. So John has been with us for almost 15 years, and he is going to talk today about some auctions and government business and some of his business that's maybe different types of business than our traditional residential that a lot of you guys know a lot about. So thank you for joining us, John. Take it away.
Awesome. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've been doing this for almost 10 years with several agencies, especially with HUD, Housing and Urban Development, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, USDA, and now it's getting more into private auctions through different websites. So I want to show you a couple of those and touch on some of the government agency that I've been working for several years, so that you see how things are changing in the auction market. Anyway, so I want to start with one of the most auction sites that are more than, is taking over pretty much over any other auction site is auction.com. And I'm going to try to share some of those sites with you. And I sent some sites to Austin. So if I have some problem sharing those with you, I'll touch on him. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this website. It's called auction.com. I don't know if you could see it on the screen. Can you guys see it?
Oh, you have
No,
to click the share screen button in the bottom of the Zoom command.
It's great.
Oh, yes, that's right. You told me to do that.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so yeah. This one, can you guys see it now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a very powerful tool out there. I'm actually doing some of them with myself and some families and friends to help them out. The key part of this auction is that you have to know the property prior to bid, because there is a 5% buyer's fee that your buyer would be responsible for. And in order for them to have you be representing them, you have to register, and then they'll register you as your realtor. So it's very important that you communicate with your client to let them know, hey, this property is going to be in this site. I register already. All you need to do is select me to be your realtor, so that way you can help them with the process of the inspections, the process, the title, and the closing part of it. A lot of the banks, because it's not just one bank, it could be private people wanted to auction their homes. It could be the federal government also put their homes in there too. And a lot of private banks like Bank of New York, Bank of America, US Bank, you name it. All the banks that want to get rid of their properties that way quicker is through auction.com. So I just want to show you briefly, the site, because you can look at properties all over the United States. And all you need to do is put the zip code, the address, or the town, and the property will show up. I'm going to put here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I'm going to put Portland, Oregon. And right here, you could expand your search and see the properties on the right. Can you give me a thumbs up if you hear me? Okay, good. I see people talking, and I don't know if you can hear me, but good. I'm glad you do. So when you see this, it gives you the idea of what's happening with auction.com in the Portland metro area. So the first thing you want to do, if you see a property that is interest to you or your client, you want to click on the property, find out where the property is located. It'll give you everything you need to know. It's in here, including the address. And a lot of the time, it gives you this number here. This is the real resale value. Don't pay too much attention to that, because this is, I don't know if this is an appraised price, or if this is just analysis that the auction.com put in there, because a lot of people don't know this, but sometime when you bid on these properties and there's no one else bidding against you, auction.com is actually bidding against you. And they do that, try to keep your bid higher so that they could get their client the highest they can by, I don't know if this is the right word, they're trying to trick the bidder that there's another bidder out there, and it's actually could be auction.com bidding on the bank's behalf. So watch out for that, and you will not know that either. But anyway, if you have a budget or your client have a budget, try to stick with that budget and don't go over that budget, because what happened is if the property doesn't sell in the auction, because auction.com was bidding on you against you, they will put that bid back, that will put the property back on the auction block again, since they're not a real buyer. So just keep an eye on that property, because that property will come up again on the auction.com, and you'll see it, and you're gonna scratch your head and you're like, how come this is back on the auction block? And that's because it may not have met the bank, the reserve, and that reserve is not shared with anyone. Not even auction.com know that's reserved. So sometime if you don't reach that reserve, that property will stay there for many cycles of auction auctioning that property until the bank dropped the reserve. And if your bid was pretty close to what their reserve is, they might actually contact you and say, hey, I noticed you submitted a bid. We'd like to let you know that we are going to be putting this property back on the market in auction.com. So just wanted to let you know the date and the time. So keep an eye on those, because once you bid on a property, and even if you don't get it, they already have your information, and they will be following up with you and contacting you to let you know the property is still available. So anyway, that is just kind of a, an extreme, what they do. Basically, it's very behind the doors most of the time. But once you do get the property, it's important for you to know that there is going to be a 5% buyer's fee. So before you provide that buyer fee to the seller, all the contract has to be signed by the buyer and the seller, and then your client could submit the buyer's fee, which is 5%. But before you do all that, once you locate the property, due diligence is the name of the game on these auction properties. So when you see a property, right here will give you when the information about the property. This one will give you the dates that the property will be on the market on the auction.com, the time that will start, and it gives you a lot of information that you could see on the RMLS. In addition to that, if you go below here, this property here says cash only. Even though it says cash only, you could actually use not traditional financing, but you could get a hard money lender to help you with this property. You could also get a home equity line to buy the property. And also, sometime you see most of it are cash only, but sometimes you do see properties that are financeable. And the reason they make the property that is financeable is because the listing agent that is listing the property and also on the RMLS for auction.com go to the property, do an inspection of the property, visual inspection, and say to the asset manager, hey, I think this property is actually financeable. Why don't we also market it as a financeable property so that we get a bigger pool of buyers? And the reason I know that is because I list quite a bit of these properties, and I also, my goal is to sell the property as quickly as possible. And to get the biggest pool of buyers, I always try to get my asset manager to put the property also as a financeable property if I believe that it's going to be financeable. And so anyway, this way that pool of buyers gets much bigger, and then we get a lot of traffic on the properties. And sometimes we get so many buyers that they actually contact me directly to get more information. They might not buy the property we have at the auction, but they're still looking for a house. So that's a great, great buyer.
John, what does the inspection period look like for these? And if buyers sign an offer, can they get out of it once they see the house? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Great question, because that is the biggest concern that buyers have and investors have on this property. These properties are targeted mainly to investors, and investors are usually a very savvy buyer. So because the bank and the asset manager know that most of these homes are for investors, they don't have very much leniency towards them. So they basically tell them, okay, you was accepted. Now there is no inspection period. The inspection period should be, and this site particularly tell you, do your due diligence before you submit your bid. So this is why it's important that if you have a realtor that knows how this system works, you will let them know, hey, I could let you in the house if it does have an RMLS lockbox, if it's listed in the RMLS. you could actually have instruction how to show the property. And so the answer to your question is there is no inspection period. You should do your due diligence before you submit your bid, because once you sign that contract and the seller signed the contract, you kind of stuck. You really, unless you find something really major with the property that you cannot see it. For example, if you have the house is there, but there's all the plumbing is missing in the crawl space and it's not connected to the foundation, or the foundation is cracked and there's going to be $20,000 worth of repairs, you could argue to the listing agent and the asset manager that you need to back out due to those reasons, because the cost is very expensive to get it fixed. And that's not a cost that you're expecting at all. So if you have a really good argument of why you need to back out because of the expense, then they will definitely work with you and reimburse you the earnest money back. Some banks, if it's something like $5,000 or $10,000 worth of repairs, they might say, tough luck. If you back out, we're going to keep your earnest money deposit. So be careful and keep your clients as safe and as possible you can from this auctions, because all these contract for the seller is in their favor only.
Thanks, John. And if anyone else has questions right now about auctions, feel free to chime in or type in the chat. Oh, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, I've had a little experience with auction.com, but more looking for clients who had low buying power. And we've always come up against the wall that we're up against investors. And so it usually is a non-starter once we kind of get into it, just because it doesn't seem like a good place to find deals, just because oftentimes the clients that I'm working with at the entry level aren't going to have the finances to do what needs to be done to the property, even if they were able to achieve a sale or a purchase. With more experience, what is your kind of experience with the success rate of finance when they are financeable versus cash? I mean, do you see them almost exclusively going as cash purchases, or do you see them, financing when they are in fact financeable? Did they have success rate with buyers who have, maybe more limited finances and are financing?
This is what I would do. If you find a house and your client, because I tell you the reason, it's a little bit opposite of what you just mentioned. Even though these properties are targeted for investors, buyers that wants to live in the property is willing to pay more than an investor would pay. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the property and you see, okay, this house seems to be financeable, but it's cash only, then what I would suggest is to contact the listing agent on the property and let them know, hey, could you contact your client, your asset manager, the person in charge of managing the sale on the bank side, and ask them if they could change or if they could allow a finance on the property, because it seems financeable. There's really not major item that could make it not financeable. It's really, at this point, it would be up to the listing agent to contact the asset manager and say, hey, I have a buyer and the house is financeable. Can we switch it to be financeable? So contact the listing agent. These houses are also listed in RMLS. Most of them are, especially the one that looks in good condition that could be actually financeable.
The other question I have is given the fact that you don't have the luxury of traditional inspections, how do you as an agent kind of protect yourself do you have additional disclosures that you give? I mean, if we're going into someplace and I'm obviously don't have the expertise, I can put eyes and maybe able to see a crack in the foundation or something. But if something comes back, I mean, do you have additional disclosures at the onset that you say, hey, look, we have limited ability to inspect these properties. You as a purchaser need to understand that from the get-go. I mean, how do you protect yourself as an agent from liability?
Basically, once I went down on this listing here just to show you there is a review property information. Look into all these PDF files because it will give you some information. In fact, it will give you a sample of the deed in some cases, and also in order to protect your client's interests, when it comes to, inspection, and I would suggest to have, the first thing we'd do is get the title company involved, and it's your title company who you would work with, because even though you have a title company locally to help you with this, the companies, most banks use their own title company that is actually outside of Oregon. So you might have to submit or wire transfer the earnest money outside of Oregon. But the question that you had again is how do you protect yourself from your client on these property, is you just let them know up front that these properties are bank owned, sold as is, where it is. And the best way to move forward to make an offer on a property like this is take a look at the property, get inside the property if you can, if it's listed in the RMLS. You could actually, and the asset manager and the listing agent will allow you to do an inspection prior for you to submit the bid too. Not sure if that helps, but.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
John, I see this specific one has in-person auction details. Are any of them online that can you bid online, or do you have to go?
Most of them are online, even though when it says in person, you can still bid online.
Hey, John, another question for you with talking about contingencies. We talked about property inspection as a contingency. Do they allow or have any contingency allowable for subject to loan approval, or do you just go forward and without that safety net?
Not if it's a cash buyer. If it's the property, it shows financeable. It's they could work with the buyer. I have experienced some of this transaction that the buyer, the house was financeable and the buyer fell through because something happened in his part that couldn't get financed. So I see them that they're flexible and give the earnest money back to the buyer. The thing is, they look really tough on front and on the screen of you not getting your earnest money back, but there's several ways to get your earnest money back. If you're not sure, then I would suggest contacting the listing agent, or if it's one of our agents in our office, they're welcome to contact me and I could help them through it, because I could get in the back site on this site and find out who the asset manager is, or talk to the listing agent, and we all know each other, and I could explain, the situation to them.
Thank you.
Anyway, I was just gonna go ahead and show you some other ones that are very popular too, but this one being the #1 auction site in the nation right now. This is something that I think all the agents should play a little bit about with this site. There is some fees that auction.com wants the buyer to pay upfront when they're bidding, and it's $2,500. And the reason to do that is to weed out some of the people that just wanted to play and trying to submit bid to see what happened. But if you don't get the bid, or even when you get the bid approved, you actually get that $2,500 refunded back to your credit card. But they do require $2,500 to submit a bid. So just let your client know they only want serious buyers, and that's why they have that fee there, the $2,500 to submit bids. So if you don't win the bid, then you won't get charged. If you win the bid, you get that earnest money, that $2,500 back. One of the things that I wanted to show you guys is other sites that are popular too. The other one is Zome Real Estate. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, good. So this site is very similar to, very same buyer's fee, which is 5%. This site, I don't believe they charge $2,500 for buyers to submit bids on this. But if you are a realtor, I would suggest trying to submit the bid on your client's behalf, so that way you have a little bit more control on this site. But it's very similar, almost the same platform, and another very well-known auction site. The one that I like the most, and it's actually a lot easier,
How do I get out of this thing?
is actually HUDHomestore.com. On the HUDHomestore.com, these properties start for only owner-occupied first. So the owner-occupied buyers that are occupying the property will have the first shot on this property. And the reason they do that is because they want to make it affordable to first-time home buyers, or people that cannot afford a house that is going to be expensive. So these homes tend to be less expensive for
Dude, I can't get out of this. Come look at this.
entry buyers that want to buy the property. Let me see here. Can you guys see this website?
It usually pops up.
So this website is great for owner occupied, because the first 7 days or the first 15 days is qualified just for owner who's going to be buying and living on the property. Some of these property, I would say a lot of these property needs a lot of work. And the reason the prices are less expensive is because they want to make it affordable for buyers, and because there's some issues on the property. But for example, this is all the properties in Oregon. There's not very many of them anymore, because there's a moratorium for everything right now. So there's a big backlog of homes that have been foreclosed, but there's still people living on the properties because they don't have a place to go due to the COVID-19. And it's, now it's extended to the 31st of September for eviction to resume. So it's going to be a madhouse later after all this is done, and all the extension expire for evictions. It's going to be a little chaotic. So basically, this site, HUDHomestore.com, and this is only for HUD homes. And as you can see, this is for all over the United States, including Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, Mariana Islands. Anyway, so you get a picture here of the state, the United States. And when you want to see a property here in Oregon, you just click on the state of Oregon. There's several ways to look for properties on here. The best and easiest way is, if you have an investor who's looking for a house and they don't care what the property is, you could locate the properties for investors only by clicking on the buyer type and put investors or investor, and then search. And anything that is available for the investors will show up, which is most of them right now, because they have been on the market for over 7 days or 15 days. So this property will definitely be available for investors, and also for owner occupied too. So it doesn't matter if it's only for investors, owners who wants to buy these properties and move into the property, they're also welcome to bid on them. So when you locate the property for your client that you that they like and they want to move forward with it, then you just click on the property. And once you click on the property, it will give you more information. And this is where you could actually get a list of the repairs that need to be done on the property. This list is created by an appraiser that visits the property to basically let the buyers know the major issues with the property and what could make it insurable or financeable or not financeable. This property, for example, shows here FHA financing. It says IE, that stands for insured escrow, meaning that there is at least $5,000 worth of repairs that needs to happen on this property. And so that qualify the property for an FHA 203B. The 203B is basically that is $5,000 or less. If the property is going to require more than $5,000 for repairs, then it goes to the FHA 203K. So I'm sorry, the 203B, forget the 203B, it's the 203K that I'm talking about. So the 203K, you could actually go up to $40,000 or $45,000 on repair or remodel in the house. So I would strongly suggest to talk to a lender who does this type of loan, the 203K and the 203K streamline or the rehab loan. So this property has, all of these properties in this website has like 5 different tabs: the property information tab, amenities, addendum, map, agent information. So the one that I would concentrate, since you already have the property information, the first tab, just look at all information that about the property. The biggest thing here is the financing part of it, which is this IE. And if you want to know more about that, then I would suggest going to the addendum tab. And there's a bunch of PDF file here, but basically some of it is disclosure, some of it is samples, some of it here is how to bid on these homes. And all of these links are very, very important. A lot of them has these links that says GNND, that stands for Good Neighbor Next Door properties. These properties are for teachers, firefighters, first-time responded, people that live and work in that area who wants to buy a house. They actually get the property for 50% off. It's a great deal. However, I have not seen any Good Neighbor Next Door property in Oregon for a long time. So remember when I show you how to look for these properties? For investor, you put investor. You could actually go on Good Neighbor Next Door and look for properties that are Good Neighbor Next Door in the state of Oregon. And I don't think you'll find any, because it's Oregon is not really in need of rehabilitation in some of the areas. It's a pretty good state for homes, and the value stays up for the most part. And so I wanted to go back to that property so I could show you to the point where how to submit the bid. So once you locate the property, remember the addendum tab, then you go to the disclosure PCR. PCR stands for Property Condition Report. That's where you click, and this will give you the repair items that if you do this repairs, then it will qualify for FHA. You don't have to use FHA to buy this property. You could use a traditional financing, but right here will give you the main items of what needs to happen on this property. So if you get a property that has this a list of repairs through this website, my recommendation is to submit this page to the lender and try to get a contractor or find out approximately how much this item will cost to repair. And then just put an amount next to it here or in this end, and then send it to the buyer's lender. They will definitely need this with those costs so that they know what to expect for the buyer to bring to closing, or for the finance portion of it to stay in escrow for those repairs to be done after closing. None of these properties that I show you so far on the auction website or in the HUD home store would allow you to do repairs. They would not allow to do repairs prior to close, and they would not change the list price or the offer price. The only way for buyers who are buying a home through the HUD home store is to back out. HUD would not penalize the buyers to back out due to inspection, due to financing failing to close. HUD is very accommodating when it comes to owner occupy. They will get the earnest money back all the way to closing. If anything happens, they will definitely will get the buyer's earnest money back. So,
John, this is such great information. We have just a couple minutes left, so I might stop you there and see if we have any questions
that would be great.
on all this great info that you've gone through. Speak up or pop in the chat. But I mean, we're lucky that we have John, this on auction and HUD home and foreclosure expert here in our office. So as this becomes more and more relevant in the fall, you know, John is a great resource for us. And then
Could
John,
I ask a question?
Oh, please.
So John, what's your sense? I think you touched on it a little bit already, but what's your sense about the business activity that's migrating to these auction sites? You've been dealing with them now for probably since the last downturn. Just can you kind of give us a sense of what you think is going to be the future for these sites?
Yeah, I think auction.com is going to continue dominating on these properties. There's more banks are hopping into auction.com to basically team up with a realtor and trying to help them sell the properties. HUD will always be HUD. It's an insurance. Actually, HUD is an insurance for lenders who finance property through FHA. Since FHA is backing these loans, they're owned by HUD. So those property will not make it to any of the auction site but the HUD home store. There is a backlog. There's people that have been foreclosed already, and the eviction process has stopped when the COVID-19 happened. And my understanding, even though we have an extension to the 31st of September or the 30th of September, there's already some talks that they might actually extend that for a whole year. So that means that there will not be a lot of REOs, filling these sites. And also depending on the state, because some of the states are not non-judicial, some of them are judicial. So different laws in different states. So what that means is that basically there is a lot of homes. I don't know if you get the weekly updates from notice defaults from the title companies. I get them, and I see more and more on those notice of default. So there is more coming up. It's just that they cannot be processed due to the pandemic.
And John, I would add, there was an article in the paper that I read, actually online, that 1/3 of Americans with mortgages missed their payment in July. So, it looks like there could be a lot of business driven to these sites, right?
Absolutely. And even though I have a couple of properties that I just babysitting them because we can't do anything. I had to still do some inspection on those properties and go to the property twice a month or once a month, and knowing that there's people that still live there, but they still want me to go and see the properties because the thing is, they want to know the moment those people move out. So if I go to one of those inspections and I find out that they moved out, I'll let them know. And if they do move out, then we could proceed with the process of putting the property on the market. So I think I sidetracked from your question.
No, that was good. Thank you very much. And also I want to thank you for coming on the call. This is great, timely information. You're very thorough.
Awesome. Well, if anybody needs anything from me, help, guidance of how to submit a bid on auction, Xome, HUD Home Store, or there's another one that I didn't even touch on, is VRM. They handle the Veterans Affairs foreclosures, and those also will not go to the other auction sites. They will stay with VRM.
Great, John. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining. And we will see you next week. And if you're staying on for Chantel's call, you don't even have to dial back in. You can stay on.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.